started. Good morning. Thank you for coming. I'm Angie Flynn. I'm the Director of School Counseling here at Shrewsbury High School. We're going to talk about our course selection process today, and with two of our counselors, Jeannie Lucier and Greg Soboff. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and they'll take it from there, and then after the presentation, we can do Q&A.
So hopefully we'll answer most of your questions as we go through this. But first we want to start with what the course registration timeline is. And feel free if you want to take pictures of anything. So this whole week we have been going in, actually we've been coming here and meeting the students here to go over the course the course timeline, what they can expect, changes in the curriculum, and exactly how do they go on to Power School and request their classes. So that's, excuse me, what we've been doing this week. Next week, teachers will be meeting with students and putting in their recommendations into Power School. During the week of February vacation and the following week is when you and your student will be actually putting in the requests into Power School. So the teacher's recommendations will be in there, and then you can go ahead and select all of the courses. So that will be happening, we keep telling them, the Monday of February vacation, so that way they remember that. And the deadline for that is March 1st at 3 p.m. So they do have a couple weeks. And the nice part about that 2-week window is if you're having conversations during vacation week, the following week you can email us, we can answer those, because you still have the next week to put in those requests. The month of March, we will be meeting one-on-one with every freshman, sophomore, and junior to go over their requests, make sure everything was put in properly, answer any questions. So the current freshmen will meet with us the week of March 18th, current sophomores will meet with us the week of March 11th, and juniors will meet with us the week of March 4th. Now, there is what we call placement meetings. So if your child and the teacher are not in agreement with the placement, so let's just use, for instance, we're getting some music coming from the band room too. So let's say
like the Oscars.
yes. We're gonna put the red carpet down. Let's say, for instance, they are in English 1A. We use that as an example, and they really want to go to Honors English 10. And the teacher is feeling like that might be a big jump. You and your student are feeling like, nope, I really want to try that. You can request a placement meeting. So that would be a meeting with yourself, the teacher, your child, and the department director, and then if we're available, we try to attend as many as we can. And those have to be done by March 29th. So at those meetings, what would happen is you'd have a discussion, the teacher would present why they feel the recommended placement is appropriate. The student would talk about why they want to change the level. There'd be a discussion, and at that time it would either be decided to stay at the recommended level, or there'd be a contract that's signed that says, nope, we're gonna change levels, with the understanding that even if it's a struggle, that would be the placement for the following year. So as you'll notice, the deadline for these is March 29th. So what we tell the students is, for the request, you put in what the teacher recommends, and if there is a placement meeting, and it is decided that there's going to be a change in the level, we will go back and do that later. So if that, excuse me, if that pertains to any of you, just know that at the time of registration, please put in what the teacher's recommendation is, and then we can go back and change it at a later date. Because I've been in a number of those meetings over the years, and the end result is the student stays in what the teacher recommends. So that's why we only make the change if it's decided that there'll be a level change. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So steps for course registration. And if I'm talking too much, Mr. Silva, jump in.
Sure, I can take this over. So we are currently wrapping up presentations for students this week. We gave them all the links of how to access the program of studies. That's all on their Schoology account. So they go into their Shrewsbury High School students, school counseling resources, and then there's a whole folder for course registration. We also So like after that, then next week is really going to be the time that students and teachers have these conversations to facilitate what class will be appropriate for next year. And then we are going to, so these next two bullet points, complete course registration in Power School, Monday of February break till March 1st. During this time period, definitely utilize us as resources and have your students reach out to the school counselors, because even though we start meeting to plug in the schedules and to look at the classes on the 4th, we still, between that time, are valuable resources for the students and all of you to like ask, hey, what is it about this class versus this class? You know, already I'm getting some questions of saying like, oh, I would really like to take computer science, but do I need to take a prerequisite? And then I showed the student all the different computer science courses that don't require prerequisites. So this is a great time. Ask these questions now. I told the students, look over that program of studies, study it, like talk to all of you about it, over dinner, at home, you know, just really like get invested with this process, because we're not, we definitely want to make sure that everyone comes prepared for registration. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. Regarding that, like when you have the discussion with them, I'd like to like, is there a place for us to go like and see where the class description is, so we kind of like.
Oh yeah, we're gonna show you all of
I
that,
don't really,
yes.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
so much.
because that's
Absolutely.
definitely helpful for you as
Right.
parents.
Yeah, and we're gonna show you where that's located as well.
So I had a slightly, maybe I'm 2 steps behind you, in that, so all of this talks about like the how to do the course registration.
Yeah.
I don't know if we missed, or like, can you talk a little bit about where the students get the why? Like, you know, why should I register for an AP class versus a honors class versus an A level? Or why, you know, where it becomes more, at least for me, it's been more of a question is, like, I don't know how the students know, like you said, you know, I'm gonna go into computer science.
Mm-hmm.
Or I want to be, so if the students know what they want to do, I think this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're missing the step of, like, how do the students get to know what they want to do or what they should be thinking?
It's a great question. They meet with us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's our one-on-one conversations with them.
Absolutely, we tease all that
Yes,
information out.
because what we go over right now and what we're going over in the presentations with the students is sort of like the overall picture, but it is individualized, which is what you're referring to. So those are our one-to-one meetings. For instance, I met with a sophomore student last week who, current sophomore going to be a junior. So they have the option of going into advanced placement classes as a junior that they don't have in freshman and sophomore year. So the student is very excited and wants to take on many APs, and we had to say, okay, let's step back. These are a lot of level changes. There is a time management sheet in the student's resource guide that Mr. Soboff was referring to in terms of a whole school counseling folder that's in their Schoology account. And that time management sheet would be really good for you to all sit down with your student, go over, especially if there's gonna be level changes. My recommendation to all the students is pick your busiest time of the school year. So if you're a robotics student, build season. If you're a musical student, when you are getting ready for the performances and your practices start to pick up. If you're a football player, football season.
Yeah.
Whatever your busiest season is, think about that and think about your time that you can dedicate to your schoolwork. Now look at if there's level changes, how much more time is expected? Because in my experience, what I find with students, and you can jump into with yours, but what I find is they look at each class individually. So if there is a level change, they'll say, oh, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And I'm like, yes, you can, but can you do it all in a 24-hour time frame, 7 days a week? With all of your extra activities, the balance is the key. So balance is huge with this. It's just sometimes students think about like each individual class, so they think about English, math, history, science. Our job is to say, okay, let's put it all together. Can you do it and keep your sanity is really what we're looking at. So it's not, can you do this class on its own? It's can you do it and do everything else that you want to do? And get some sleep and eat, and maybe say hi to your parents and guardians every once in a while. So that's sort of what our conversations are. So that's where it gets very individualized. You want to add anything?
Absolutely.
So I have a question. I looked up yesterday night for the all class, all courses information. Some courses indicate like a 9th grade you can select, but not 10th grade.
Yep, so we're gonna go through that. We'll show you how that works and
Yeah,
prerequisites.
my question is, for example, my son is 10th grade, but if he wants to take a pre-calculus at 10th grade, but in your information, 10th grade cannot take
There's always,
pre-calculus.
depending on the track they're on, that's when it gets individualized, and that's when math teachers make their recommendations.
Okay.
So it depends on the student's track. So again, what we're showing you is the overall kind of
Big
general
picture,
picture,
yeah.
but there are special circumstances for certain students.
So it's a recommendation the student or parents request from teacher or?
So next week, the students will be meeting with the teachers, and the teachers will be putting in the requests based on what they recommend for the following year. You
Okay.
can't skip classes. Like, you have to follow the sequence, but based on where you are, will depend on what that sequence is, and sometimes it can be a little bit different based on that individual student. But you can't skip a class. So if the sequence is, Algebra and Geometry 2, Advanced Math 1, Pre-Calc, you can't go from Algebra 2 to Pre-Calc. Like, you can't just skip it. You have to follow the sequence. Which let us keep going through this, and then we can answer more questions.
Yeah, if you follow a sequence, the student doesn't have a chance until 11th grade to take pre-calculus.
Yeah.
There's a reason for the sequence, so that they're prepared.
And that's a great example of
Yeah.
like a question
You know,
that
the other thing is, in my daughter, and she's in the same school, she just take algebra 2 in 9th grade here, and transfer 10th grade over there. She just take it directly,
Every
take it to
school's,
DC.
every
It's fine.
Yeah.
school's different,
so
so.
you're seeing, yeah.
But if you have specific questions about math, those are for the math teacher, about your particular student. So moving through under the resources, so again, there's a course registration folder. So if you ask your student to go into Schoology, they're gonna go to the Shrewsbury High School student group, and they're gonna click on resources. And then there's gonna be a course selection 24-25 folder. So that is where you're going to find the program of studies. And again, we'll show you how the descriptions work in the prerequisite as we move along. I talked a little bit about the time management worksheet. That's where you'll find that. There's the directions in there on how to complete the whole process. And then there's some additional worksheets for students, just if it's helpful for them to pick, okay, here's my English class, here's my math class, here's my history. Some students like those, some students don't need them. It's really an individual preference. And again, Power School opens on February 19th to start putting the requests in.
Okay, so the other way of where to find the program of studies, just through using a internet browser, is by going to the Shrewsbury High's website and then looking for the school counseling link for program of studies. And then you can find, so right now, this screenshot shows last year's, but the current one for next year, the 24-25, is already uploaded there. So we have a PDF version, and this is exactly where those descriptions come into play for the courses that are going to be offered. So this is a great example of like what a course description looks like. You can see for child development 1, this is a semester course, they don't require any prerequisites. That's gonna be really important to make note of these different types of circumstances, such as prerequisites. What type of level is it? Is it A or honors? And then also if there's any confusion or questions that students have, maybe they put a higher level foods class and they didn't take focus on foods yet. That's stuff that we as counselors will tease out and identify when we have those individual meetings to make sure that all of their course requests are in line with where they are based off of the courses that they've already taken.
So A level is the CP then?
It's college.
College prep,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's college prep.
absolutely.
So, and you'll notice too, like a student that wants to advance in art, if they want to eventually get to Studio One, we'll tell them, don't just look at the classes that you want to take next year. Look at all the years so that you can look and say, okay, in order to get into Studio One, there's a prerequisite of art intro or creative sketchbook. I'm going to sign up for those for sophomore year, so then junior year I can try for Studio One. So we always tell them, yes, you're picking your classes for next year, but look beyond that as well, so you can make sure that those classes you want to take as an upperclassman, you're trying to get in those prerequisite classes as well. So that, does that answer sort of the question that you had earlier? So there'll be, I cut off the descriptions just for the purpose of getting 3 of them on one slide, but it'll give you a good explanation for every single class. So definitely encourage you to go through that.
Okay, so this is this is how students choose their courses. So once it hits February 19th and the portal will be open, they just want to make sure that they're at the correct year, so it would be 24-25, and then they would go to click the class registration tab, and then this is, so like health, for example, is already pre-populated, and PE will already be pre-populated for the sake of convenience, so they don't have to choose a health or PE class, because that's something everyone has to take every semester.
And just note, when they go into Power School, not the app, they have to be on the website.
Oh, yeah.
And that icon, the class registration icon, will appear, but not prior to the 19th.
Yeah, so if they tried going on the website today, they wouldn't see this
Yes, it would be
icon.
there.
Okay, so as I was saying, health PE automatically populated, it's gonna be a green check mark. You'll know, and students will know, that if there's action to take, or if they're okay, by the status that's indicated here. So, for example,
Ignore that PE part.
yeah, as we said, we are gonna pre-populate all of PE, but let's go on to, look at, so this is, let's choose, so like, what's the next? Okay, yes, this is what I wanted to show everyone. So, English, for example, that is, means that actions need to be taken because the student needs to choose the English class that they would like to enroll in. This, for example, English elective, that is already checked off because it's not a graduation requirement. They don't need to take an English elective, but they can if they'd like to. So, just disclaimer, just because something is checked off, automatically, it means it's not a requirement, but you can still look through the offerings, and if you want something, that's where they can request it.
So if they were to click on that pencil next to the green, let's just pretend that it's, oops. Oh, there we go. It's PE. Okay, hold on. There's
There we go.
English. I wanted to go to, okay. Well, we're gonna pretend for a second that these are all art electives. So it would say down here, for art in particular, you can choose up to 3 semesters. So then you would go through and you would click if you wanted art, let's say you're gonna be a strong art student, you'd pick your art, and Here, it's gonna tell you, wait a minute, there's multiple pages. So maybe I don't see the art class on this page that I want, so I'm gonna click on number 2 and see the rest. Once I've selected what I want, I'm gonna go over here and click OK, and then those classes have been selected. This one particular, as Mrs. Soboff was saying, this one is the required class. So this is telling you, you are only allowed to select one course. And what will show up here when the teacher, this is before the teacher puts in their recommendation, but once the teacher puts in their recommendation, let's say the recommendation is English 11A, there will be no other boxes to choose, and it will say, this is the course the teacher recommends.
Yeah.
So the student will only be able to select that and the OK. Is that, everybody got that? You want to do alternates?
Yeah, so this is really important, and I think this is a piece that I really want to make sure that gets emphasized. So if we go back just a few slides to that English electives, okay, so if students choose any electives on this page, which is like the non-alternates, they're going to be considered first choice priority electives. But we don't always guarantee that they can always get the courses that they choose, their first courses. So that's why we have a feature called alternate elective choices. And we require that students pick 3 alternates. And basically what we message to students is you want to choose classes that you are going to be okay, more than okay, that you are going to enjoy having in your schedule in case you get these instead of your first choice electives. There's many times where, you know, someone might, and this is the part where, you know, we will really have these one-on-one conversations, but what we want to avoid are students just choosing different things to satisfy this requirement and then coming to see that that course is in their schedule the next fall and saying, oh, I really actually didn't want this. So this is why we're really front-loading this information to say, look through that program of studies, see what classes interest you, if there's some stuff that you really like, but maybe isn't your favorite, isn't your top choice, put those classes on here. Don't just put it down to satisfy.
How do you go about choosing the students that fill the class?
It's all computer generated. We don't,
First come, first served?
so,
No,
no, it's you want to try to?
It's really hard to explain. It's like an algorithm, basically. The computer takes all the requests. You have to build a master schedule, and you build it based on the number of requests. And so the program tries to place courses where the most students can access them in their schedule. But you know, if there's a singleton, like if a class is only offered once in the master schedule, obviously it can't accommodate every kid. So it is a little bit of I always call it as one big puzzle. It's a huge puzzle. Seniors do get priority, like it's seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, when the schedules run. So there's the build process, which is building the actual master schedule, and the load process is where you load the students into the schedules. So it's a little bit complicated.
And there's no override. So once the computer has chosen, that's all it is.
Yes.
So you know.
Yes, I mean, well, one of our assistant principals builds the master schedule, and she will look through it and change things, and there, it's not perfect, so there's always errors, and so she'll have to go through and fix things. And you gotta take account of how many rooms do we have? What's the max class size? So there's lots of factors that go into it.
Is one of the factors of the trajectory of the student career path, for example?
Sort of, but it doesn't get down to the student level,
Because
individual student
You know,
level.
that was my original question, is one of the gaps, I think, is we don't track career path, and therefore, at least I don't think we do.
Well,
And
we
therefore-
do have some pathways coming up.
We haven't gotten there yet.
You haven't
We'll
gotten
still
there.
get
It's not for every student, but it's, we have almost 1,900 students here. So the master schedule is very limited. someone's out there that can build something like that, and you'd make $1 million. But so far, there's no program like that.
And I think like using the pathways as like a guide will help us like choose what course we want to put for them here, and that's how it helps I think.
But- So one thing I want to point out is high school students, they haven't been exposed to a ton of different things yet, right? I mean, they're 14, 15, 16-year-old students, so they haven't had the exposure to all these different career opportunities, which is what we're trying to do. So when you think of electives, think of that. We're not preparing them for their career right now. That's college, that's trade school, that's what they go to. We're trying to open up their eyes to see all the different things that are out there that they might be interested in. And let's face it, there's careers that are going to exist when they get out of college that don't even exist right now. I joke with the students, and you guys will get my joke, because they don't always get my joke, that like cell phones didn't exist when I was in high school. We didn't have them. So like a Verizon store, we never thought that was a career option when we were in high school. So again, there's gonna be careers that we don't even know yet. So we can only prepare them for what we know right now. There's going to be even more opportunities for them. So think of electives as the opportunity for them to be exposed to all different things that they haven't been exposed to. So maybe they're saying this is the career path I wanna go, but all of a sudden they take some different electives and now they're like, wow, I never even knew this was an option. So when it comes to the electives, as Mr. Soboff was saying, whatever they select on here, if it does get in their schedule, they cannot change it. So please make sure you're also emphasizing that at home. They cannot put, we always have some jokesters who think, ooh, I'm gonna put American government 3 times and increase my chances of getting in. It does not increase your chances of getting in. And if you put American government in on the main page that we were showing you, and then you put it on the alternates, it'll actually cancel out your request. So whatever you put as alternates, they need to be 3 different classes, and they cannot be what you put in the other section. So if you can help us out with that, because there's always a few jokesters in the class that try that. Or we used to have students who don't put anything, and they said, oh, I want to study. We're like, it doesn't work that way, because it won't actually let them submit the requests without putting in the electives. And you got to make sure you meet the prerequisite for the electives as well. But really think about this not so much as we're preparing them for their career, we're preparing to open their eyes to all the different things that exist out there. And what a better place to do it now. Hopefully save you some money and they're not going on the 5th-year plan of college when they decide to keep changing their major as well. So it really is an opportunity for that. So as I mentioned, it will not allow them to submit until they put the proper amount of credits in the alternates. So for the class of 2027, they must put in a minimum of 31.25 credits. Same thing for the current sophomores, so they will be juniors. And then juniors to seniors are 30 credits. It will let them know before they submit how many credits they have in there. So again, minimum of 31.25, maximum of 35. Then they submit it, and then after that, they will be meeting with us. And
excuse me, can you go back to your
oh, you want me to go back for a minute?
Yeah. So when you say required between 28.75 and here it is 30 is the minimum.
Oh, ignore that. That's some.
It's
You
just
want to
an
focus
example
on this.
Oh,
from
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. But you're paying attention to detail. I like that.
So for the next steps, as we highlighted where to find the program of studies, that's going to be definitely the biggest thing, is just familiarizing yourself, having the students familiarize themselves with that document, as it really does really nicely give a comprehensive overview, not just of the courses that we offer, but also different questions that you might have as families, like how is GPA calculated? What are the graduation requirements? It goes through all of those different categories. So, and then next week they're going to discuss the course recommendations with the teachers. Again, we have the course selection worksheet in case the students want to kind of map it out on paper. If you're a more visual learner, I will show you, we are going to get into how you as parents and guardians can access the recommendations from your end so that you can see what the teachers have requested or have recommended. And then, yeah, as we have stated, the course registration will open that Monday of February break. And one thing that we say here, if students are not able to choose or submit their courses by March 1st at 3 p.m., then when we meet with them, we'll talk to them about what classes they'd like to take.
We tell them they don't want us selecting them. We say, trust me, you want to select it, you don't want me to select it.
So there are instructions for the students. There's a nice manual step-by-step of how they're able to request the courses for course selection. And then what we're gonna get into a little later today is to show you how all of you can sign off on the parent screens.
And is it okay to like email the assigned counselor for our student if
If you have questions?
Please.
Yes, please do.
Encouraged, absolutely. Okay, so this is a little bit, so everyone's going to log into your parent account. And when you log in, you might notice the link for course approval, but we don't want to start here. You actually start by reviewing all of the choices and recommendations under class registration. So once this button opens, you too will go to class registration. Okay, so then.
Can you go back?
Go back.
Oh,
So
sorry.
sure. Okay. All right.
Everybody got it? All right.
So then you will review all the classes and recommendations. So for instance, here you see the student requested AP language, pre-calculus, chemistry, US history 2, health and PE, 3 electives, creative writing, experience 2, intro to linguistics. And then here, you can see the teacher recommendation. So you can see whether it matches up or not. So you here, you see AP English, and the student chose AP English. Pre-calculus, student chose pre-calc. So this is the screen. You'll want to utilize this screen just to make for your own viewing purposes and reviewing that the recommendations match the requests. And this is really good talking points for you and your student to, discuss. Oh, you are recommended for both AP English Language and English 11 honors. So that means the teacher is saying you could do both. You have the capacity to do both. Let's sit down and talk about what type of experience would you like with English next year. Do you want an AP class? Do you want to, have a little bit of an honors class where you can still have that level of challenge, but maybe not to the level of AP in consultation with all the other classes? This is really the heart of the conversations right here.
Now, I see that the teacher's recommendations are populating after, the schedule has been selected by the students and us and registered for. And I know you mentioned that on the drop-down when you're registering and selecting, then they'll populate there too. Is there another way to see the teacher's recommendations like that?
I don't think you see this from the parent part until after.
Okay, but it will populate as
It'll
as
populate
you're
when you
selecting
click on
yourself.
each, like
Correct.
English, it'll say what the English
Okay.
teacher recommends.
Okay.
And if they've recommended 2, it would give you the 2 options, and
Okay.
that's where you can say, okay,
Gotcha.
which one
Okay.
are we gonna
And then
choose?
from our students, we'll probably know what exactly the teacher recommends, because they'll have a
They
conversation
will
with them
know,
too. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
or at least they should know.
Okay.
Yes.
So you said that about the English language and then the English honors. That's saying that they could take both, but
No,
I
it's saying they
thought
can take either one.
Oh, okay.
Either.
Because I was gonna say, you can't,
Yeah, you are correct.
Take, okay.
The
So-
teacher might have had a
Choice.
discussion that says, you know
Okay.
what, I feel you're capable of either, but again, when you figure out that time management, what other classes are you gonna change levels in? Let's make
Right.
sure we're realistic when you put that whole
Those
piece
are the
together.
options.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's really great to have those conversations with the student about, you know, at home about, hey, what type of experience would you like for junior year?
And in, I don't wanna say all, but I would say in a lot of cases, students who go up levels, sometimes their grade comes down a little. For some students, that's a really hard thing to accept. So you know your child the best, so you need to have those conversations that there could be a chance, if you're a student that's used to getting all A's and B's, there's a chance there could be a C+, you know, or B-, that sometimes students struggle with that. So if you're noticing that there's numerous recommendations for an upper level, have those conversations and really please be realistic with balance, because that is so important. I can't tell you how many kids, by the time we get to Thanksgiving, they didn't have those conversations, they weren't realistic, and they are melting down in our offices. So please, please, please have those conversations at home if there are some level changes going on.
So our question, for the new classes, complicated recommendation. For example, the ninth grade doesn't have chemistry, but 10th grade they have chemistry, the honor chemistry comes on.
They can, yes.
So who is going to give a recommendation for that?
Science. Yeah, whatever the class.
Science and the physics?
Yeah, whatever, so English teachers recommend the following year English. Math teachers recommend the following year math. Science teachers recommend the following science. So whatever, it doesn't matter if it's bio, chem, physics, whatever that class they're in, that teacher recommends the science class for the following year.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
This is once they've returned.
Yep, so then after if you confirm the classes that you see, you would just go back to this approve high school course selections, what we saw on the first screen. And then when you click that, we can go to the next slide, it's going to basically say, you know, here are the courses, here's the credits, credit equivalent that they hold. And then you will agree to the different forms. So basically, you're signing off that says that you are agreeing to the schedule. And also, if your student is taking an AP course, there's a separate AP agreement that you have to sign as well. And then I just wanted to say that even if you have these course placement meetings, you can still sign off on this, and we can still have the course placement meetings with the teacher and department director in case there is, as Ms. Lucier was saying earlier, maybe a need for further conversation about a particular course.
And just one thing I want to point out here, this mixes up even the alternates. It doesn't separate the alternates out,
Yep.
but don't worry about that, it does on our end. And the other thing to know is when a student comes to meet with us in March and we pull up what their requests are, we have the 3 alternates and we will ask every student, what's your first choice, what's your second choice, what's your third choice? We go in on our end, you will never see this, they will never see it.
Yep.
Even though theirs is numbered 1, 2, 3, it's not in the order. We do it in our end for the computer to read those alternates as, okay, if I don't get the first choice I had, it's gonna go for my first alternate. If it doesn't get that, then it's gonna read my second. If it doesn't get that, then my third. So just know that you're not gonna see this, so I just don't want you to be confused to say, wait a minute, how are they getting all of these classes? It just includes those alternates as well.